think we're ready to start. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to ATARC's After Lunch webinar series. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of data governance throughout the federal government. And my name is Tom Suter. I'm the founder and CEO of the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's panel. I want to welcome all the attendees. Special thanks to Margaret Garino, Marie D. Dominica, Aileen Black, and the rest of the Calibra team. They've been a great partner to ATARC. They've been a great partner to the federal community. And so anyway, this afternoon, we're going to hear from our panelists. We're going to have some Q&A, some of it by me, some of it by you. We, as usual, will have a very intelligent crowd out there that's going to ask all kinds of great perceptive questions. So we're going to count on that from you. We're also going to have a poll question or two, and then try to answer all your questions. But if my panelists can come on live, we're going to do some brief introductions before we go into deep dive on this subject. We've got everybody coming on. It's looking good. I think we're waiting for Carlene. Carlene, are you on as well?
I am. Fantastic.
We don't have your video, but we'll just go ahead and forge forward. But anyway, we have with us today Carlene Alito, Acting Chief Data Officer and Deputy Executive Director of the Chief Data Officer Directorate, Office of the Chief Information Officer at the Department of Homeland Security. How are you doing this afternoon, Carlene?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. And are you in the office? Or are you working from home today?
I am working from home today. I was wondering, could you see my video now?
No, we have like a little bit of a conflict there maybe on your computer. We can hear you fine. We just can't see you. So,
okay.
Well, there you go. Wow, we got you.
Oh, great.
It's good. Good to see you. So
thank you.
And next we have with us, also with DHS, but a different part of DHS, Dr. Kenneth Clark, Senior Component Accountable Official, Chief Data Officer / Assistant Director, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement inside the Department of Homeland Security. How are you doing today, Kenneth? I think you got us on mute.
Doing well, Tom, and hello to everybody. Hope everybody's well. It's a good day today.
Yeah, it's a good day. And we also have with us DeVarius Peoples, who's Chief Information Officer, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. How are we doing today, DeVarius?
Doing good. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. And we also have with us Iona Montano. And Iona, did I do that any kind of justice?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. And she is the Data and Evidence Lead, Office of Enterprise Strategy Management, Federal Acquisition Service, which is part of course, the General Services Administration. And how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here.
Good. And last but certainly not least, we have with us Aileen Black, who's Senior Vice President of Public Sector Calibra. And Aileen also is on the radio. She's been in this industry for a while. I've always respected her. I'm glad we have a chance to work together. How are you doing today, Aileen?
Great, and thank you for having me today. I'm just hoping that the snow doesn't start before we all can get on our way to where we need to be this afternoon.
Yeah, that would have been more picturesque had snow coming down. You're like in that nice nook. It looks like in your house there. I like it.
Timing was off.
Great. Well, maybe we'll start off with Iona. I know you want to, we would love to hear your story inside of GSA, and I think it would be helpful. This GSA has many compartments and different places that are working on this. I would love to hear where you fit into this this picture over there inside of GSA.
Wonderful, thank you. So thank you everyone, and thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here. I'm quite excited. So yes, General Service Administration has many offices, but two very large branches. One is the Public Building Service, and the other one is the Federal Acquisition Service. So I am the Data and Evidence Lead, which is sponsored by the Enterprise Strategy Management. Crystal Philcox is the Assistant Commissioner for that. So that's where I am. But I'm going to start, and let's see if I can do justice in 5 minutes to what I have been doing for the past 3-4 years. So let me just present here very quickly. For Federal Acquisition Service, it was very important that the data and evidence, it's under the enterprise strategy management, because what we are aiming to do actually is to connect the strategy, data, and analytics together to fulfill our goals. That said, I'm working very closely with Clifton Best, who is the chief data architect, and with the IT division and the CDO. So it's very much intertwined and a fully collaborative process. I have also wrote an article which is called Leading and Learning through Dynamic Performance Management in Government. I publish it with my co-author, Kathy Newcomer, who was the director of the Touchable School of Public Administration at GW. And the reason why I'm mentioning that article is because I described a vision for that can be applied to any governmental institution. How to do this. So let me just start this. When I started this effort, data at Federal Acquisition Service looked like this. It was heterogeneous, and both data and analytics, and decentralized. So we have done this baseline study, and what you see in there, the red dots are the data sources and the blue dots are the units that are using.
Iona, not to interrupt, but if you can hit that share screen button right at the bottom, I don't think we can all see it.
Oh, that's quite important, right?
Yeah, I figure it was worth interrupting you for. No big deal.
Absolutely. Let me start again. Do you see it now?
There we go. Yep, we can all see it.
All right, so this is, I was going to share this amazing chart. It's like completely all over the place, but that's exactly how the data sources look at FAS. As I said, data sources and analytics completely heterogeneous and decentralized, right? So what we thought to put in place, and it was a bottom-up and top-down approach, was data and evidence governance. And we had brought together basically the data analytics and the strategy under the data and evidence governance board. So this board worked with the overall vision to build an organization that is more resilient and more adaptable to the changes in the ecosystem it operates. So we had 4 goals: transparency in governance, data flexibility, agility in analysis, and adaptability of strategy. And that's what we are working towards. We put together a set of strategic documents that included a data and evidence governance charter, concept of operations, and an enterprise data strategy. So now I'm going to go to that slide. In terms of enterprise data strategy, we had started with a baseline study and research of what are the requirements of our analysts and leaders in terms of what they will need from a data strategy. So we developed this enterprise data strategy where we provide several services, which include data management, data provisioning, data compute analysis, that's what I was going to say, as well as a tool that allows us to catalog the data and view what is in those data sources. So what we've done with the different data sources that we have, 200 plus sources and systems and so on and so forth, was to, in a way, standardize them across 9 functional domains. So by domains, I mean data that it's really grouped and standardized along several functional areas. And I list those in that beautiful flower chart. You see those areas. We manage it at 3 layers of management, right? At the central level, we bring together the data points and the key data elements that are standardized and used by across all domains. The second layer, what we call the shared layer of management, where we have common data sources across 2 or more domains. And then the third layer is the domain-specific layer, where there are some unique sources that are only used to a particular domain. So I'm pretty sure I'm past my 5 minutes, so I'm going to stop right here, but I will be happy to answer any questions there are. Thank you very much.
Now, this is fantastic. And is there any possibility of sharing these slides after the event? We got a couple questions to that. Is you have to get some.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thanks. That answers that. Next, let's go to the U.S. military, over to the Army Corps of Engineers, the various, and I know your mission is very diverse. It, crosses into the civilian area, as well as you've got to have your own rules, and then you want to work with big Army too. But I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me again. Yeah, as we all have communicated many times, the Corps of Engineers is unique because of the dual aspects of the mission. However, I think the most important endeavor that we embarked upon this fiscal year is the data domain, trying to achieve success in understanding our various data sources, ensuring that we have authoritative data that allows us to make more informed decisions as an organization. Within the Army as a whole, I call it Big Army, at the headquarters level, has actually embarked upon establishing policies, procedures that the lower cabinet level Army elements should be following with regards to a solid data strategy. And then from there, we implement from being overseen by a data governance board and those type of things. So within the Corps, we have we split our data efforts into 3 areas. One being that of visualization, because in order to be able to access the data, you have to be able to see it to make informed decisions. 2, we've broken it down to the component of data management, data quality, because at the end of the day, if the data doesn't make sense, if you can't read it, that structured and unstructured data, and at the end of the day, it is not beneficial to any leader that's trying to make a decision. And then finally, we look at it from the hosting platform, that cloud environment where we're stored, where it will live. So with all of those things, they make up a concept that we call the enterprise virtual viewer. And that virtual viewer component or concept is how we actually get after achieving our data strategy, our data implementation. We are right now modernizing about 7 of our major high value assets. And based off of those high value assets, I consider that to be the USACE ecosystem or domain. Some of the benefits of having a solid data strategy, as you know, we've assisted with building the alternate care facilities for COVID-19, but we also have a unique civil aspect of our mission, which is to ensure that our nation's waterways, even the construction element, our levees, locks, dams, and those type of things, all are there to support the nation. So we have a serious, unique mission, and not to mention when it snows in certain areas heavy, when it floods down in the south, the wildfires out in the western region. It's a unique mission, and we never sleep. So at the end of the day, it's all about data. So that's what our data strategy is enabling us to do, and we are getting the support of our larger Army headquarter component with regards to how to properly move into the cloud, how to properly identify authoritative data sources, and move in a strategic manner. So it's fun times at the Corps as it pertains to data, because we live in a data domain, and at this point, it's all data. Thank you.
Thank you, Devarius. And now we'll switch over to DHS. And Carlene, I'll start off with you since you're at the OCIO, and I know you're just kind of recently, I know you kind of go. It's like they put you around where they need you inside of DHS, and they just recently moved you over to the acting chief data officer. So how's it going in the last month and a half?
I have to say that it has been quite interesting, and I'm very excited. It's very impressive to hear all these great things that are going on, and being a newbie in this position. And I'm excited to kind of poach on some of these guys and kind of get information from them of how we should get moving. But DHS is extremely large. So just to introduce myself, as stated by Tom, I am Carlene Leto. I'm the acting chief data officer for DHS. And in the Department of DHS, we are focused on a lot of things because 2019 was when we really just got started, to be honest with you, and really addressing the need for a chief data officer. And that's extremely important. We are, though, working very hard in just catching up with a lot of the documentation that we're supposed to be generating, like our enterprise data strategy, our open data plan, the DHS Data Governance Council meetings, and the charter that supports that effort. But more importantly, we are, really formalizing the data governance through policy. We are now building repeatable governance processes for the cataloging, requests for changes, and to communicate those changes of the data standards. But our plan is to really leverage existing governance processes by partnering and also partnering with our evaluation officer and our statistical official. And I feel that the three of us, being the chief data officer, then the evaluation officer, along with the statistical official, we need to be in lockstep with each other, hand in hand. And these are the things that we would like to focus on, like reiterating the need for DHS to develop and maintain an open data plan. And we are establishing best practices for the use, the protection, the dissemination, and the generation of data. We're trying to promote data sharing agreements between the components, as well as external. And the reason I say that is because we have a large law enforcement component area, as well as immigration. And you'll probably hear a little bit about that from Kenneth. But because it's fairly large, we need to be able to provide data not only within the different components, as large as we are, but also external to other departments, like, for example, the Department of Justice, and then be able to identify better ways where DHS can use data to make policy decisions. And then lastly, substantially strengthen DHS's ability to use evidence and data to invest in what actually works. But as you know, that comes with challenges. And we are experiencing challenges right at the ground level. I mean, it's quite interesting, and especially during this time or during this season of COVID-19. However, we are still maintaining a data governance and data security best practices during the COVID-19 response operations, which is essential more than ever to the department's mission. So because these unique circumstances, of us working from home, it is important that the department takes the measures to maintain good data governance and protect sensitive data that is unwarranted, that we're going to protect them from unwarranted access. So to state this and to really pull everything together, I have to say my goal right now, knowing that I'm a newbie as the new CDO, my goal is to help our department realize and to understand that data is probably their most valuable resource outside of their actual employees.
No, that's fantastic. And Kenneth, I'm going to transition to you as one of the components of DHS. And if you can add a little bit more too on the how does that Chief Data Governance Council work? That seems to me like that could be really a key component for you all over there at DHS.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. Working really closely with Carlene and the entire DHS team is really crucial from our side at Immigration and Customs Enforcement. As a CDO at ICE, I'm also a member of the Data Governance Council that the department has that Carlene chairs, and it's a group that started up this year, and first two meetings were face to face, and then we rapidly went into the virtual environment. And but really, hats off to the CIO at the department, Karen Evans, and then our CIO, Rochelle Henderson, and being able to work together and come up with the necessary teleconferencing tools that we had to be able to still have these meetings going. But just to add to a number of the comments made in the past, you really look at there's always the mission need, and at ICE we're really I have two major operational support clients, and that's enforcement and removal operations, and then our Homeland Security Investigations organization, which is the second largest investigative group in the federal government. We also have the legal side, and then management administration. I actually fall under the Office of Management Administration, and actually in my role, I'm a peer to the CIO. So that's very much a different model. There are models where a CDO works for the CIO. There are models where they're peers. In this case, obviously, we are a peer, but we work really hand in hand, work closely together. The technology piece, working closely to ensure that the resources and the capabilities and the architecture is there. But we're looking right now very much on, if you look at the problems, one of the biggest challenges we have with data sharing across not only in DHS, but even with our mission partners is interoperability. I mean, how are you able to share and get the valuable data from other mission partners to help your mission, but then also vice versa, because Homeland Security is a huge endeavor. So we're looking at establishing a standards regime, actually putting together a standards approach that's going to have core standards, those objects that we use on a regular basis, and then being able to build upon other standards that we need. And this is also working closely with the department, because the department started off on a number of standards. For example, race and ethnicity, using that standard that's based on the OMB standard. And so we're working very closely to make sure as Carlene and the leadership at the department level are looking at standards, and in many cases supporting the important immigration mission, which is core for our area, but making sure that the standards are going to be able to be implemented at the component level, and being able to use the current investments we have. Hopefully they're conforming to those standards, but then also being able to potentially migrate to the new standards. Also looking at quality. The biggest thing is data quality, ensuring that that what you see and what you gather is actually accurate. Because when you're doing law enforcement investigations, and you've got to have accurate data. You've got to be able to have that data for being able to deal with prosecutions and other types of activities. And then also having a plan. So that plan, we work closely with the department to make sure that their strategies are going to be consistent with the strategies that we're going to implement at ICE. And we work closely with the mission owners. We've had, in fact, we're right now in the final coordination cycle for our data strategy. That's going to be for the next 5 years. It's tied to the ICE strategic plan. But it was also based on interviews and actually collaboration with our clients, our mission users out there, to say, what do you really need? What are the problem areas, the trouble areas? And then also, again, making sure that that's consistent with the department-wide approach. So really, it's, we have a great relationship working across the entire Department of Homeland Security. I collaborate with other CDOs and some of the other components, particularly on the immigration side. And you really have to have that well-established governance approach at a big agency, such a department such as Department of Homeland Security.
Great. Thanks, Kenneth. We already have homework. If any, Devarius and Carlene and Kenneth, if there's anything you might be able to share as a takeaway, I've gotten a lot of questions about that already. And it kind of reminds me with ATARC, what we do. We have an AI and data analytics working group. I think it would be very good is to take a look at all these different policies. And hey, I'm a Department of Justice. I kind of like what they're doing over here with DHS in this one area, right? So we can share this. It's something that I got to keep relearning, but we've done this in mobile and we've done this in cloud. Maybe we should be doing it in data. And now I'm going to move over to Aileen Black. And Aileen, you have this great opportunity to see across government, and then what is the private sector doing? You get to see those interesting perspectives. And thanks for coming today. And I'm really interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you, Tom. First, again, thank you for having me on this panel with all these great work that these distinguished guests are doing. As you shared, my name is Aileen Black, and I do have the fortune to lead a global public sector team here at Calibra. And in my role, I have an opportunity to see governments from around the world and commercial entities And I gotta, say a shout out to the U.S. federal government, because they're really far advanced than many of their counterparts across the globe. And I really think it has to come down to the basic foundation of the first start of the Evidence Act, and the way that the folks at OMB and GSA have really worked on the federal data strategy, and that shows best practices and practical steps in implementing a data strategy to truly leverage data as a strategic asset. 2020 clearly showed us of the importance of having data and practices that implement data innovations that drove more value for this strategic asset. Having a strategy is not a nice to have anymore. It's a must have to have agencies meet their mission objectives, and to be quite frank, to be resilient to meet the challenges for today and tomorrow. The result of connecting the right data, the right insights, algorithms to allow agencies to optimize processes and increase efficiency and drive innovation are sorely needed. I think, Kenneth, your examples were great examples of practical uses of approaching that. That is what data intelligence brings to the table. Data has played a major role in our government's effort to combat and to respond to the effects of COVID-19. Data enabled rapid responses. A great example happens to be one of Calibra's customers that wasn't able to join us today, which is Defense Logistics Agency, or DLA, who began sharing daily status reports on protected personal equipment like masks and ventilators with DoD. They included it in Ivana, a digital analytics platform that the department developed last year to track everything from finance to readiness. So again, that integration that all the other panels have been talking about. The tool is used to track stocks of key medical items owned by DLA, the Military Services Geographic Combatant Commands, HHS, and FEMA. And this was all possible because they had invested in a data strategy and began to implement that data strategy. One of the core elements that is very critical is data governance as part of your data strategy. I think the panelists would all agree. The current pandemic has shown us that several data usage concerns and raised important questions about data governance, driving for a much more robust data governance framework that includes ownership, and transparency and security. But no data strategy is complete without privacy and security. This component of data strategy is really required in a new normal, and the concept of privacy by design protects individuals' privacy up front. So you have to have it up front. You have to design it in the strategy. You have to design it in the processes. You have to design it into the infrastructure. And choosing an integrated platform that also is security compliant to requirements like FedRAMP, I believe, are also key. Data is no longer the purview. Just look at who is sitting around the table of data admins or data architects. It belongs to every knowledge worker. It needs to be easily accessible in a trusted and secure way to truly reach the potential of an agency's digital transformation plan. Let's face it, every day we get tons more data, and on top of the mountains of data our government has already, and everybody produces and consumes data and that leaves so much room for opportunity for collaboration. And it can be formal, such as structured and automated workflows, or ad hoc, more like crowdsourcing. But at the end of the day, it has to be human-centric. It needs to reflect the sometimes random ways humans connect and communicate, which means that we have to silo the nature that we have to jettison, the siloed nature of data management today. This is how we change the dynamic. This is how we reach the state of data intelligence. Data intelligence is about understanding the positive effects data can have on agencies and their missions, which offer the ability to create the needed and wanted impact. Data intelligence allows any data citizen to uncover and extract the strategic value hidden in data. Data intelligence gives everyone the power to use data to solve problems, implement ideas, transform the way an agency can accomplish mission objectives. The ability to truly and properly leverage technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning has to have started with a trusted data intelligence strategy. The pandemic has shown us once again that data is one of the government's greatest assets. While data is available in abundance, governments need to integrate and adopt holistic strategies based on a data system of record to maximize the service they get from their data. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for that, Aileen. Questions are flying in. We've got a couple that are I think it's a good question that we can apply to everybody. And maybe we'll start off with you, Carlene, since it's addressed to you. And but I think everybody can answer this. Where do you think the biggest challenges as you help with the adoption and implementation of the data strategy? What are some of the biggest challenges that you're running into? And I'm going to have everybody answer that question.
All right. I'm going to say that we're working remotely, which I think is a challenge in itself. But to go outside of that, we have such a large agency in DHS, and really being able to collaboratively pull things together is going to be has been our biggest challenge. One of the things that I have realized is that we have to do information or data sharing and interoperability. And it's so important that we have our systems of record be in a position where they can send data where necessary without being concerned about the meaning of the data, the structure of the data, and so forth. So those data standards, those policies have got to be on top of things. We have to be on top of those. We have to be in a situation where we understand that. And we've got to be able to have a governance operating model that works across the 22 components that we have in DHS. So one of the things that we are doing, and I think a couple of people touched on this, and I think Kenneth did as well, is the data domains that pretty much provide the department the capacity to really focus on whatever the data challenges are at the mission level, at the strategic level, at the enterprise level, at the operational level. And we're not just documenting the data, but we're addressing the data quality at the mission level at the same time. So one of the things that we've done is we've set up data domains, or I should say, for immigration. So we have an immigration domain, we have a law enforcement domain, we have a cybersecurity domain, which we better have since security is our middle name. We also have a preparedness and emergency domain that's set up. And then we have, lastly, our management support domain. And the way we are really looking at some of these challenges, we're setting up these domains so that they can look at the data that they have and address the sharing of that data by working together collaboratively to identify what those data standards should be, and to understand what those data policies should be, to understand who's going to access that data, how they're going to use that data, how the data is going to be protected, the quality of data and the integrity of that data. So to be honest with you, it is for DHS, and I can only speak for DHS, I can say that it's the information sharing or data sharing along with interoperability that is going to help. That those are our major challenges right now. I think people have already taken off the gloves and said, look, we need to get this right. That's not our problem. We need to collaboratively work together to make sure that the data that we are sharing internally, that our systems are able to provide that data for us in such a way that we have the tools like Calibra, which is a data governance tool that's going to help us to do that. And then we can communicate across the board in order to do the data analytics that is needed internally and externally, and then hopefully make solid decisions.
That's fantastic. And Kenneth, you're the other side of that same coin over at DHS. Anything you want to add from your component perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And really just, Tom, just to dovetail what Carlene was saying, with governance, there's always that trade-off. You can have too much governance and it can impact results and outcomes. So you have to find that balance. We all know that part of the importance of information and data sharing is again, you got to have the quality, you got to have the processes in place. We've just actually issued an information sharing and access agreement directive, which will allow us now to have a standardized way of sharing between other agencies. So that way we can keep track of the provenance of the data, knowing where it originally came from, knowing that there's a quality requirement, there's a retention requirement. Sometimes there's data that can be shared, but at some point it should not be shared beyond that party, or it should, or that data could even be obsolete. So how do you keep track of that? Privacy and civil liberties, and making sure that we ensure that those requirements are factored in. I have the luxury at ICE because the ICE privacy officer works for me, so we're able to address in our office privacy issues. I also have the records officer, so we're dealing Federal Records Act. We can address that. I also have FOIA, so if there's ever a requirement for gathering information for being transparent on federal government operations, we have that. But really, again, it's how do you do the trade-off? You know the old adage, you never want perfection to be the enemy of progress, and the ability to get things out. But if you have a good regime laid in place, such as what we have at the Department of Homeland Security, where we have a data governance council, and then at ICE, we've established a data governance board. So we're able to bring the requirements from the department level across our enterprise at Homeland Security, and then coordinate them at ICE, make sure that that's not going to impact mission operations. And then, of course, any issues that we find at our level, at the operating level, we can bring those up to the Data Governance Council. So there's a good flow of requirements, good flow of governance, and mission outcomes. So I think those are all important.
Great, thank you for that. And how about over Iona? How about over at GSA? What are some of the challenges that you've seen?
So definitely, I can agree with what Kenneth and Calibra has said. They are. It's definitely Carlene. I'm sorry, I don't mean to mess up your name. So a few years ago, when we started this journey, we definitely heard and dealt with the same things like sharing, access, PII, CUI. How do you put all of this together? So I'm not going to repeat what they have said. What COVID has done for us, though, is to bring in a way a humility and a humbleness to what we are doing. We really realize that how the work connects between us. So the connectivity between what one does and how that affects the work of the other. And it brought us so much together. So what I could say is that there is an unprecedented cross-functional and interdisciplinary collaboration at FAST. So we are basically together in this. So and we feel that bottom up and top down. So from top down, leaders have definitely recognized and provided a vision to have a more agile and adaptive strategy. And on the staff level, we have been empowered in a way to use our analytics and use our data to better respond to what our the strategy needs. What I do want to say on top of maybe added to what others have shared is that when we implemented that enterprise data strategy, we thought of two key aspects. One of them was to respond to key business needs and key research questions that we had. And in a way, the Data Act, the Evidence Act, and the Federal Data Strategy have helped with those, right? There was a big call on what are the big organizational questions that you're trying to answer, what are the learning agenda, what is the evaluation plan, and so on and so forth. So that was on one area. How do we bring our data to respond to those questions? But then the other aspect of it was, how can we empower our analysts to do discovery work? So our data infrastructure was supposed to answer two different arenas. One of them is encourage exploration, encourage discovery, encourage flexibility of data. And the other one was to answer to key business questions. One area that I think definitely Carleen has touched upon is the need for evaluation and evidence. So everything that we have done was basically, everything started with what is the baseline, what are the needs of the analyst, what are the needs of the leaders, what are the needs of the organization, so they can have ownership, and they had ownership into what we are doing. So there is a bottom-up support for everything. So challenges are things that are similar across the organizations. It's how do we tackle them, how we move forward. And I can definitely talk about this a little bit more, but that's essentially it for us.
No, thank you for that. And Devarius, what are some of the challenges that you've run into that you've been trying to muscle through?
Yeah, one thing I would say is the people aspect, the culture. We put a lot of emphasis on a lot of technical buzzwords in so many different areas. But at the end of the day, when it comes to having skilled, trained workforce to know exactly how to use a lot of these tools, it's like a deer in the headlights look. So one of the things that we've been trying to put a lot of emphasis on is ensuring that we have a skilled workforce that can meet the demands of the 2028 transformation. And leadership has begun to embrace that, because as you know, you have many different skill sets from many different areas and backgrounds, especially from a federal workforce. But we're beginning to work with industry. One of the staples in the core that we emphasize is, as we work with industry, industry must train us how to fight. Right. So it's not just industry coming in, doing a job or performing and we taking tools from them. It's industry being a true mission partner. So once the time comes to where they migrate off or something new comes about, our workforce will be able to operate in a capacity where we truly understand. And that takes time to really educate and train the workforce. It's a true investment. And right now it's a challenge. Because as you know, being able to get trained up with the capabilities and those type of things, everybody's trying to get in some of the same trainings, and finances are very far and few. So that's one of the things, the culture and the talent, that's what we're trying to really build up our professional workforce.
No, thank you for that. And one thing that I'm learning from a lot of our industry partners is they've migrated halfway decently to online training, and instead of these in-person workshops, it's actually they're reaching more people. So Aileen, I'd love your perspectives. Once again, it's like, what do you run into when you go meet with a customer? Oh, we're not ready for data governance yet. What do you see? I think you're on mute, Aileen. You're kind of stuck on mute, Alyssa. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, fantastic. So just to reinforce some of the things the panelists said about what we saw was best practices and agencies that really adopted it. Again, I'm not going to repeat, it starts with a strong foundation of governance, with the design, with the security and privacy that is tightly integrated, but balanced, like Ken said, with its usability. But what Doris just said, you need to build a data culture that includes training and clear accountability. So when we go in and we're working with organizations like the Army Corps of Engineers, I think we need to work with them to help them become responsible data stewards and educate them and get them into that fight. Give the access and availability of this training across the board. I think it's really key. While also, balancing with who has the permissions to be able to, change the data or data catalogs. But the data needs to be available to most people. And an example of implementation and design that can be integrated today is if you can just take business intelligence tools such as Tableau and just starting like that, and analytic warehouses such as Snowflake and Amazon and Redshift. If you tie your data strategy to existing business imperatives that are already going, you have a much better chance that you will provide the results and the momentum internally to really drive that successful strategy, just not have it be a design. This is the way that you can really democratize your data and provide that transparency and the needed access to truly leverage your data as a strategic asset and make it be part of the process, not just a tool. I mean, it really has to be about the culture.
Great. Thank you for that. And let's go to a couple poll questions. We'll pop those in right now. Alyssa, if you don't mind calling those up. All right. Is your agency at with leveraging good data? We're pros. We've started working on it. There's progress, but we still have a long way to go. I do not know. How do you leverage good data? Okay, it's a little cheeky, but okay, we'll see how this goes. We'll give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see what we got. Need good length. My mom's a grammar teacher, so she'd be scolding me for using bad grammar. There's progress, but a long way to go. 55%. Anybody surprised with that? I'm kind of not, but things are coming along. I will ask you all, maybe we can how has pandemic affected this? You know, this is one of the first webinars, we haven't mentioned it very much, but we've done about 35 of these, and pandemic's been at top of, I think Various has been on about 3 or 4 of them, maybe 5. How has pandemic affected your mission? And maybe I'll start off with you, Devarius.
Yeah, so the pandemic, I'll be honest, hasn't really affected us as much as others because the core is a very distributed workforce. We're less tied to the office and more so at a lot of the project sites, construction sites, and those type of things embedded in the local areas. So some of the things that it has done, though, it has forced us to pull those investments and efforts that we were gonna do that were in more so the right-hand quadrant. It's forced us to pull them to the left to expedite a lot of our modernization efforts. So that is one thing that it has done, and that's good, but it's also forced us in return to really evaluate how we fund a lot of these efforts as well too, because again, we don't have a lot of funds, but we also have to support a distributed workforce. So that's some of the challenges that we face. But as far as day-to-day operations, 36,000 users have pretty much operated, at least 18,000 of those have always operated in some type of distributed capacity.
No, thank you for that. And Iona, I know the GSA's had telecommuting. What kind of demands have you seen that are different? Or are they the same?
Do something new very fast and respond and help us respond to everything that is around us. So I want to say that I think that fast was pretty good up there. So we were ready to roll. Our data and evidence governance was really as I had mentioned, the vision for us was really to build more adaptive organization and a more resilient organization. So what both COVID and Evidence Act did in a way is to help us validate that we are in a way going on to and doing the right thing. So now I do want to say that we are, as you all know, very much a service and custom-oriented organization. And it made us even more aware that we are so much in support of our federal agencies and in support of what they need to get from us. And I think that in some cases, we've done very well in terms of our supply chains. In some cases, we haven't seen, we didn't have very awesome visibility into those, but I think we were ready as ready as we could be, and maybe more ready than other organizations, and not only because of the leadership, but also because of the data and our mentality. And I want to say what Devarius had mentioned, the idea of the change of the culture within the organization to be more data driven. I think that COVID actually helped us with that. So what do we know? How can we answer the questions that are coming down the pike and helping our stakeholders? How can we provide the data that we have to our stakeholders and our customers so they can better do their jobs, they can better provide value to the citizens? So that's where we are.
Great. And Kenneth, I can imagine, for you, it was a little bit difficult.
Well, but it was challenging for everyone. But as Devarius was mentioning, we have so many elements that work in the field. I mean, on the Homeland Security investigation side, and then the enforcement and removal operations, and dealing with immigration enforcement. So working, of course, with all the protocols that we have out there, but and really, if you look at the field elements, they've had years of experience working with accessing remote data, accessing when you're in the field or you're walking, our customs colleagues walking the fence line, you're accessing data remotely. So we really didn't skip a beat. I mean, when we went to virtual, it was literally overnight, didn't skip a beat. We pretty much continued to work as normal. In fact, we were already, and this was even before COVID lockdowns hit, working a workplace transformation initiative and looking at how ICE as an agency can be looking at, it's not so much where you work, but looking at where you work in different capacities, different locations, and also working smartly too. So we already had this transformation initiative in the works. And then, of course, in March, when things went virtual, we in many ways executing some of the best practices already.
And how about you, Carlene? I know you're relatively new to your job.
Yes, I am, but I just lost a video, so I apologize for that. But I will tell you that from remote working, it's just like Kenneth said, we didn't skip a beat. We just kept moving forward to make sure that nothing, as far as we're concerned, could be a jeopardy for us. I know that remote working has been a challenge for us. However, the collaboration that we have had has been excellent. And as a result, data has been, I think, forced as a result of the COVID-19. We've been forced into using data more. We've been forced into looking and trying to access data more and searching for data more and being able to do the data sharing that is necessary during this time of COVID. So this season has been quite interesting because it's been pushing us to really address the fact that data is going to be the way we make decisions in the future if we haven't already started to do so.
Yeah. And Aileen, what was the nature of the calls that started to come into Calibra once pandemic hit? Did they change? Did the pace pick up? Did it just kind of change? How describe that to me?
Well, it definitely has picked up. Let's face it, data again played a major role in the ability for the government to be able to combat and respond to COVID. It enabled agencies to respond, and the lack of data in reverse also delayed their ability to be able to effectively respond. So, I think across the board, I think agencies have realized that they really need to increase that data experience, which basically means getting the right data to the right people at the right time, right? And the pandemic showed that some of the standards are extremely important, that data governance is really required, that data management are vital to maintaining citizen-facing services and national security, like many of the people around on this panel are delivering. Agencies continue to tell us how important it is to maintain and improve their capability to integrate data, again, from multiple sources across agencies. I think that is the nirvana we're all working towards so that you can really leverage that information beyond the people that you know. Culturally, I think one of the hardest things that happen is that people kind of give data away because you trust them. It's a personal issue. And you have to move it away and build these frameworks that allow people to trust it, to share, and to get data, to shop for the right information at the right time so that they can make the right decisions that actually help reach mission objectives.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And we have a question. I would love to hear your comments on it. Moving forward, do you feel it is essential for your federal government agencies, organizations, domains to rely on a centralized data management system or to have individual data silos with effective data management strategies and trained analysts to successfully merge data across data silos? How should it look? Or is there one fit, one for all? I'll start off with you, Carlene, if you don't mind. There you go.
No, I don't mind. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you and see you.
Oh, I'm sitting here. I can't see anything. So this is great. I'm have to tell you that, and I think it was DeBarris who said this. it all depends on the department or the agency and your culture. You know, what best fits for your culture, what works in DHS may not be something that works well in other agencies. So to really focus on the mature mission areas and build domains to bring business owners together. And I just want to make a point. We're pulling data together, but for DHS, it's more business related than it is technology focused, I think, because we are really looking at how the business is managing their data. So let the system owners pretty much solve their problems, capture and permit the data through the data governance councils. As far as I'm concerned, we have, as I stated before, the domain data domain structures in place so that these domains can share information across the board. So for example, for immigration, we have an immigration domain, and you have ICE, CBP, and USCIS are all in that domain. They often look at their own data specifically, but that's not to be siloed because much of that data can be shared across those three components. And what's even more important to that is to ensure that they are able to not only share it internally for that domain, but to also then be able to share it externally to other departments. So for example, if you are, and I'm going to use something pretty easy like a zip code. If the domain, the immigration domain, looks at this and says, we're going to look at locations, where they have immigration facilities or where they may think that there are illegal immigrants in the country. They look at a certain zip code and they say, well, we only want a 5-digit zip code, but there may be CBP that says, no, we want the 5-digit plus that 4 extra digit there so that we are precise in where the location is. That's something that has to be worked out not only internally for that domain so that they can have a standard there that they can use, but then also we need to be able to share that decision with our external departments so that they know that this is what we're going to be using. So if we're working with the FBI, that they know this is what the zip code data structure should look like. And that collaboration is so important across the board so that when there are databases or systems that are feeding data, and we say feeding data and using the Calibra tool to ensure that it is quality data that we have and so forth, and making sure that that data is protected so that their access of that data is not only it's used only by those who have a need to know, then that's going to be key for how we function as a department, because we have, along with probably all of you, a tremendous amount of data that we need to share in order to meet our mission.
Great. And Kenneth, you want to, of course, I was going to go right to you right after. How do you deal with things inside of ICE?
Yeah, very much as Carlene was talking about, I'm very much in favor of a decentralized, federated approach. I think the domain model works because you're able to, again, do that internal sharing. But then, if you're looking at it from continuity of operations, security, privacy requirements, having some level of decentralization, that way you don't have all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, but you've got the ability to address the mission needs, but also do it in a much more protected fashion.
Great. Devarius, you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I think we take a slightly different perspective than most, even those on the panel here. From our perspective, the goal of the data strategy or the data efforts is, one, to be able to make authoritative decisions with the data in which it is that we have. So what does that mean? That means being able to see yourselves fight on the same platform. Because if not, then when you're in times of war from a military perspective, and that means you're on the battlefield and you're getting shot at. So what you're trying to figure out now is how can we see ourselves on one playing field? And the goal of the data strategy is really one thing: visualization. So ultimately, from a core standpoint, we want to be able to visualize data in one centralized location. However, there are many different data stewards in various domains that, being that that's the case, you have to look at it from a data repository perspective, being able to identify what data you're trying to get access to and is it authoritative. So there are many authoritative data sources and repositories out there, but what you have to do is put solid data governance around it, meaning looking at those repositories from the perspective of data catalogs, having the right catalog, the right data dictionaries, because you can have many different data repositories, but pulling that data and visualizing it in one source is the ultimate goal. So, decentralized, I'm not going to say we support the decentralization from a visualization perspective. Everything should be in one spot, but you can have multiple repositories where you're pulling that authoritative data from to be able to visualize it in one spot.
Great, interesting. Iona?
So I just mentioned, I know we are almost out of time. I'll mention something very quickly. So it's the biggest questions that you're trying to answer, or the bigger question that you're trying to answer. So in my perspective, I'm not looking at organizations as closed systems. I'm looking at the organization from ecosystem perspective and how they relate within and outside within their ecosystem. So you have to be able, through the data, to make the connections between the different systems that you're collecting the data from. So so there must be a certain level of centralization around key data elements, so you can unite, connect the data to answer questions that cross your functionality and your ability to connect the different system components to respond to ecosystem changes. So I'm just going to leave it at that, because I kind of agree with everyone. It's not a one size fits all at all. It's like you have to look at what are your goals, what do you want to do, and how you're going to go about that.
Thank you for that. And Aileen, I'll give you the last word on that topic, and you can close this thing out for us today.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm in complete agreement with, actually everybody said on this particular, because I think you need to find what fits for your organization. But I think a key to success, as I mentioned before, is having your data strategy integrate to what you're already doing. So there's going to be lots of data repositories, whether it's business analytic tools like Tableau or Snowflake, or whether you're in multiple clouds like Google GCP and Amazon. But the key to it is having a central data governance approach, a data glossary, so you can have a record of, a system of record of where your data is, so that people can go shopping and go get that data in those different locations, but not change the way that the organization is working, but actually create a culture that allows them to leverage that data. And that's what, a culture of data intelligence. So anyway, thank you for having me on the panel today. This has been a great conversation, Tom.
No, thank you, Aileen. And thank you, Carlene,
Thank
Kenneth, Devarius, Iona. This has been a great panel, and everybody have a nice and safe holiday. Thank you all. And
Same to you.
Be safe in the snow.
We have one more event of the year, and it's tomorrow, and it's the Digital Transformation Working Group virtual launch, and it's going to be exciting. We've got a lot of new topics we're addressing here. It's actually our last pillar. We have 5 pillars. It's our last one, and it's going to be we're going to handle everything from workforce transformation, which we alluded to a little bit today, to CX and to digitization. So we're really excited. Starts tomorrow at 1:30, and thank you all for coming today and spending your time with us. You got lots of options, and we really appreciate it. Hopefully we made it worth your time, and look for a follow-up email with all the information from everybody, and have a good holiday. Thank you.
Same to you. Thank you.
Thank you all.